Hi, my name is Andrew Lyons. I'm a graduate student at Morningside University, and I'm also a Level 1 special education teacher at Echo Hill Elementary School in the Linn-Mar Community School District. The title of my presentation is The Impact of Multisensory Sight Word Instruction on Reading Achievement of Third Grade Special Education Students. So the problem I'm looking to solve here has to do with students with learning disabilities. Learning disabilities can lead to lots of different difficulties for students across the board. The primary area is reading, where students have these problems, and that can spill over into other academic areas and also lead to behavioral problems in some situations. Not only in the academic area, but also it can lead to some unfortunate outcomes later in life, like higher incarceration rates and lower income earned. So I chose this problem or this topic because it's a big deal. A lot of kids have reading issues, and up to 90% of them can be helped with early intervention. So it's a problem that can easily be solved. And it's near and dear to my heart because I see this every single day in my classroom. It's what I do. I'm a special education teacher. It's my passion, and I want to help these students the best that I can, and I wanted to focus on that for this study. Now, the past research in this area kind of shows that previous studies, they link automatic word recognition as key to reading success. So the faster you can read words with automaticity and not sit there and laboriously sound out words, the more fluent you're going to read and the better comprehension you're going to have. Teaching sight words is very important to improving these skills and to becoming more efficient readers. So I'm focusing on sight words in this study. Some strategies used in the past: guided oral reading and also independent silent reading. There's been some studies done on the effectiveness of these strategies. We've got some mixed results from a meta-analysis done in 2000 for oral reading. Guided oral reading says that it improved word recognition and fluency, but not phonological awareness. And then the same organization did a meta-analysis on independent silent reading with showing no improvements across the board in any area of reading. But RTI, response to intervention, is a more commonly used intervention in the school systems. A four-tiered approach. You've got tier 1, which is just gen ed classroom. Tier 2 is gen ed plus a little more intensive instruction. Tier 3, even more intensive instruction. And then tier 4 is when you get to the point where you need an IEP or individualized education plan, and the student enters special education to work with a teacher like myself. Now, there's been some studies done on RTI, mainly in tier 2, and it showed that it has little or no effect on improving reading skills. Tier 3, there's been some studies there. It shows it's beneficial to some, but not all. But the big gap in the research is in the tier 4 setting. There's not much research going on that has been done in the tier 4 setting. So that's what I'm focusing on here. I would like to fill that because my classroom is a tier 4 setting. And so I would like to see if we can get the ball rolling on that and possibly prompt some future research in the tier 4 RTI setting. Sight words. I'm focusing on sight words here, and past research shows that teaching sight words is important to improving reading fluency for all students. Well, for students who are studied. Flashcards are commonly used in schools. It's a commonly used strategy to help teach these sight words to elementary students. And studies showed that it's helpful to teach using flashcards if they're done in a particular way. And they highlighted that if they're practiced routinely, not just taught one day and then moved on to new words the next day, but taught routinely and reinforced on a daily basis. And then also incorporated previously learned words with newly learned words, which is what I implemented in my study here today. Orton-Gillingham is another approach which takes a little bit of a more multisensory approach. Instead of just using visual and auditory methods, they also incorporate the tactile and kinesthetic to appeal to more senses. Now, there's been lots of studies on Orton-Gillingham. Some indicate it's helpful for some students, others not so much. So you got a little bit of a mixed bag there. I'm tying this to the cognitive learning theory, saying that learning is an active, not a passive process. Students are doing a lot of active learning during my experiment, doing a lot of appealing to the different senses, which also connects to the cognitive learning theory in the respect that people are unique in how they acquire it and organize their knowledge. So the purpose of this statement, my purpose is to determine to determine the effectiveness of a multisensory approach on student sight word retention and oral reading fluency rates in the RTI setting, possibly filling in that research gap in the Tier 4 setting, and then also possibly prompting future research in this area. My hypothesis, I hypothesize that students will retain more sight words and increase their oral fluency rate after implementing the multisensory approach. This could help teachers by identifying an effective strategy to use with their struggling readers, and it also could aid the students who are falling behind from falling further behind. So my research design was a simple single subject study, meaning that we used the same students all the way through. Same students were in the control phase, and the same students were in the intervention phase. There was not two separate groups of students. We had 6 third grade participants. They were all very similar demographically. They're all students in my classroom. They all have IEP goals in reading, 8 to 9 years old, average socioeconomic status, and they're all Caucasian. Materials, we needed the DOLT sight word assessment. It's just basically a sheet with 41 third grade level sight words on there. We also did the fluency assessment to chart their fluency rate during this project. And we used the Iowa FAST oral reading fluency assessment, which the students use in the public schools here in the state of Iowa to chart their progress if they are struggling readers. Materials that I needed my laptop for the fluency assessment, standardized flashcards, sand trays for the tactile portion, big whiteboard where the students could get up and write with big arm movements incorporating the kinesthetic modality, dry erase markers, and then the paired sample dependent t-tests. Variables, the independent variables were the teaching strategies, traditional, which were visual and auditory, versus the multi-sensory. Then the dependent variable was the academic outcomes with sight word retention and then oral reading fluency rates. We gave these assessments, the adult sight word assessments, and then also the oral reading fluency assessments 3 times, once at the very beginning before the control phase, then after the control phase, and then once again after the intervention phase. Adult sight word assessment, you just put the sheet in front of the students. I point to a word, they read the word. However many they got correct out of those 41 words was their score. The Iowa FAST reading fluency assessment, a timer set for 1 minute. They were given a reading passage. They read that passage for 1 minute. The computer tells me how many words they read per minute at the end of that 1 minute. So the control phase included teaching the adult sight words using the traditional flashcard method, where we did this for 10 minutes a day, introduced 10 new words a week, and we incorporated them into the previously learned words also to help connect with that previous research. They were shown to them, they wrote the words down. This was done, like I said, 10 minutes a day, and we did this daily for the 4 weeks. Then in the intervention phase, this was 6 weeks long, so we incorporated less words per week, and they were still randomly selected, still did the flashcard portion, but we also incorporated the 2 different modalities of tactile with the sand trays, where the students wrote the words down with their fingers in the sand trays to get that tactile sensation. Then also they got up to the board and they wrote down the words with big arm movements to get to incorporate the kinesthetic modality as well. So for data analysis, we did sample dependent t-tests, and the statistical test had an alpha level of 0.05. And we found that they made gains across the board in the intervention phase. So a significant difference was indicated with the adult sight word assessment in the intervention phase versus the control phase, with a t-test score of negative 4.54 and a p of 0.01. We also found the same, I also found the same for the fluency assessments, with the t-score being negative 0.326 with a p-score of 0.02. So we saw an increase across the board in retention of the Dolch sight words and also with their oral reading fluency rates. In the control phase for the Dolch sight words, the mean score was 25.67 with a standard deviation of 8.82. Compare that with the intervention phase with a median score of 30 words, standard deviation of 9.3. When it comes to the Iowa Fast fluency assessments, charting their fluency, after the control phase, we had a mean score of 46.33 with a standard deviation of 26.76. And then the intervention score afterwards, we had a median score of 49.67, standard deviation of 26.42. Again, an increase in the oral reading fluency. Hypothesis was supported based on these findings that the multisensory approach did increase their sight word retention and their oral reading fluency rate. Now, previous research indicated that teaching sight words through flashcards can be effective if they were practiced routinely and the words were incorporated with previously learned words, which I did during this study, and the results did connect with what was found in the previous research. Also showed that there was a link between automatic word recognition and improved fluency. Now, since we did have an improvement in sight word retention, i.e. automatic word recognition, that was that coincided with the increase in fluency rate. That shows a strong link between the past research and what I found in the results with my students. Research on the Orton-Gillingham. Previous research showed mixed results on the effectiveness. I personally, in this research study, had positive results. So a little bit of a conflict with the previous research there, but not a complete conflict. Small group size, I consider my experiment to be a small group. We had 6 students, and that connects well with the meta-analysis that shows that these students learn better in a small group setting. Does this tie to the cognitive learning theory? Yes, I believe it does. And it says that learning is an active, not a passive process. The multisensory approach was very active. They got up and out of their seats, and they went to the big whiteboard to make big arm movements and be very active to write these sight words. Same thing with the tactile sensation that they got with the sand trays. It was a much more active process of learning than they're used to. And the cognitive learning theory also said that students are unique in how they learn. This teaching approach appealed to multiple senses, and therefore having a better chance of appealing to their individual learning style. So implications for teachers going forward. I would say that, I would recommend teachers to use multisensory techniques in their classrooms, maybe 2 to 3 times per week for up to 30 minutes to help students with sight word retention, or for any other thing. And it doesn't just have to be limited to reading. It could be a multisensory approach across the board in all other academic areas. But there were some limitations with this study. First of all, we had the small sample size, doesn't allow for appropriate generalization of the population, and it can result in some extreme data points. Second limitation is that we had the same participants in both the control and intervention phases. That could be a problem because they were exposed to the words in the first 4 weeks, that they were also exposed to the same words in the intervention phase, the 6-week intervention phase, which could skew the results. Also, it was a short duration of the study. It wasn't very long. It was only a 10-week study. A much longer study would be more beneficial. The demographics were very similar for all the students. That was probably one of the biggest limitations of this study. So recommendations in the future, a study with much more students, 100 to 200 students would be more ideal across various elementary schools. Have different participants in the control and intervention groups. Don't have a single subject study. That would yield much better results, in my opinion. The length of the study should be over the course of a school year. Important to get participants from a variety of backgrounds. As I said, my demographics of students were pretty similar. And to branch out beyond special education, get some gen ed students in there too. It'll broaden the scope and appeal to the general population more as a whole. And then my references. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you found it informative. Have a great day.